Morning, everyone. This room is truly remarkable. No cell phones, no telephone, no TV. I mean, it's rare. I just thought of that when I sat this morning. Nothing to do. That's the whole thing. We're kept busy doing things. Even in Christianity, uh, my good friend Father Max, Benedictine monastery in Poland. He's always doing things, and they're doing good things. But I said to Father Max, said, they just keep you busy. What about your self-realization or the completion for yourself? This is the most important thing. And to say it in a very small way, it takes training. But actually, you've got nothing better to do. It prepare you to have a full life in any circumstance, providing that your training or practice is strong. What happened, we were to go on vacation and I was given the wrong information about a visa because things are in the world are getting so bad. You need visas now. Okay. Got to the gate when we all packed, prepared for the vacation for a long time. They said, you can't go because you don't have a visa. Well, it was very disappointing, right? You planned it for many years, Vietnam and Cambodia. But you know, that's past. I mean, it's finished. We're not attached to it. It doesn't mean you don't have any emotion, but you have emotion with training will last a very short time. But emotion without training will last a long time because you become attached to that thing, whatever it is. So, you know, when things get bad, there's a Chinese saying, when human nature is pushed into a corner, you have to do something. And I think now is the time. It's everywhere you look, everywhere, every field, every profession, every human being, we're in a very bad time. And we're being pushed in a corner. People don't know what right and wrong is anymore. And actually, the Dharma, which is like Buddha's teaching, we say, well, we say like Buddha's knowledge, okay? Buddha's realization, Buddha's enlightenment, Buddha's his realization, the Dharma, and our direct experience of Buddha's knowledge. This is what sitting is all about. So I've been trying to and want to thank the kind audience here that to explain Vasubandhu, our great Indian scholar and monk ancestor, that he left us with Tramiska, 30 verses of mere manifestation. Mere manifestation is what each one of us sees every day, including yourself in the mirror. And he wrote this, it was like the beginning of the Yogacara school in Buddhism, the practice of yoga, the 3rd or 4th century. and he had the compassion to write it down and to hand it to us. But it's very difficult to understand, and it's very difficult to talk about. And that's why I extend my gratitude for people listening. And what you're about to hear is what you don't want to hear. What you think, who you think you are, is not who you are. There's and all this delusion and suffering comes from our delusion of ourself, who we think we are. There's 4 delusions of the self. Are you ready to hear it? Buddha was more skillful. He would just talk to audiences that were a little bit more open or ready to hear. Okay, first delusion is the delusion of the self. What is the self? And because I guess, yeah, uh, when you're born, uh, the nipple is over there. It's not. It's not here. It's over there. And through culture, tradition, education, it's confirmed that everything is over there. When it's over there, it creates suffering because of the subject, this subject, and those things of this subject has been separated. The oneness has been separated. And you want to reunite the separation. That's what we have to do. And it takes training to reunite the subject and object, which has been separating. And no one wants to do the training. But it's the best thing you could do, because you want to suffer in your life, that's your choice. Or you want to not suffer in your life. You want to die with great difficulty, or you want to die well. It all comes down to that, and not just dying while it's time to die, but dying those thoughts that you're conditioned to give strength to and permanency to. You know, you can die while you're living, and to distinguish which is not so good of a thought between a good thought and a bad thought. He wrote this, and it goes through. I'll just read you some of the bad thoughts, and this is what happens to what people they call it. We call it vexations, right? And there are good thoughts, and there are very bad thoughts and very bad people. In fact, Dogen says when you are ancestor, some people you meet you cannot help because they are bad. No, this you cannot change it. Okay, this is some of the people you probably have met. Okay, let's see. It goes down quite a few sentences. Vexations, okay, or afflictions, bad thoughts, are desire, hatred, delusion, pride, doubt. The doubt that there's 2 kinds of doubts. A doubt that you wonder, that's a positive doubt. A doubt that you doubt everything, that's a negative thought. Okay? Doubt, wrong views. Secondary vexations are anger, hostility, obscuration, jealousy, greed, deceit, harmful flattery, arrogance, lack of shame, lack of consciousness, acting upon agitation, torpidness, lack of faith, laziness, harmful speech, yeah, and people who want to harm others. I mean, this is within in ourselves. And this is what we're working with. So he skillfully, and not just through skill, but um, upaya, skillful means from delusion of the self. We're going to talk about the self, right? Delusion of the self is one, perception of the self. And I remember Trungpa in the 70s and 80s, he he called it confusion of the self. But I didn't like to see that or read that. But actually, we have a confusion of the self until we know what the self is. And so when you're operating from the confusion of the self, this is why the whole world is the way it is. Okay, uh, the view of ourself, confusion of self, and the pride of ourselves. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what this is me. And the last one is the love of the self. Each time we look in the mirror, that's me, you know. We're attached to ourselves. Everyone is attached to themselves to whatever degree it is. So isn't that something? That's what we don't want to hear. You have the view of delusion of the self, because it's so, because it is what you think it is, but it is not what you think it is. And this is a very interesting phrase. It is what it is, and it is not what it is. So, like in the sutra we chant every morning, the Heart Sutra, everything is no eyes, no ears, no nose. The not means negation of the name or thought because it's not correct. No. In other words, no could mean complete affirmation because what we're taught, what we see in front of us, the name and the form is not correct. It's only the name and the form. It's not the reality of what it is. The reality of what it is the floor is me and I am the floor. We are separate. I mean, when we are together, and then from that, this this form is that emptiness, emptiness is that form, and then I am I, and the floor is the floor. That's the whole. That's the completion, and that's the release of the conditioning self, of the confused self. This is why it's important. Is it's the life force for the blood of all human beings. Non-separation, the oneness of things. Okay, and also it doesn't just say delusion from this self, but from the objects of this self, things we think we own, or things we think we see, the things we name what we see. Each time you name what it is, it's separate from your life. It's separate from yourselves. So this is what the training and the practice of Zazen is about. To forget this self. Not being absent-minded, but going down to the mind source of where thoughts come from. We're always looking out because that's what we're taught to do. But when you do not look out anymore, okay, the life of a thought. How long does a thought live? First, it appears. Second, it stays. And depending on who you are, it can stay for a second. It can stay for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 hours. We become attached to it. A lifetime. And then it disappears. It appears, dwells, and disappears. That's the life of a thought. But now we're not looking at the thought, we're looking at the mind source, where the thoughts come from. When you start looking at the mind source, it's going to diminish your thinking, especially in your breathing. If you breathe from the Tanden Kikai, the Tanden, there are three power spots of the body. Here, below the navel, here the chest, but not the heart. We're not referring to the heart. The chest, and here between the eyes. Okay, we focus on the one below the navel. So below the navel, Tanden means humanity's field of essence. That's humanity's field of essence. See, when you people used to ask Roshi, Suzuki Roshi, when you think, how do you, what do you usually do? He says he thinks by his toe, his big toe. So that's kind of interesting. But when you think by your big toe, not by your brain, but by your big toe, it includes your entirety. If you think by your tanden, it includes your center. Try it. But you know, the best place to train and try it is here. This is the safe place. Not when you're driving a car, because you just try, you might be getting in an accident. But anyway, you have to train and try it. It's the best thing you could do, not only for yourself, but for your friends, the world. Just a small drop in an ocean. But the ocean is composed of small drops. So the things in themselves, we think we own them or they are far from us. We name them. As soon as we name them, there's no respect for the world. We name it, we push it away. But they those objects exist because we exist. We exist because the objects exist. We are not separated. Nothing is separated. That's the self. It separates everything. Like Indra, who was Chakra, uh, the creator of the world, Indian creator of the world. Her domain was a net, and it pervaded the entire sky. And when the net, what do you call the eye of the net when they cross each other? Was a jewel, and each in this net, each jewel reflected each other. You can imagine how many reflections there are in that net. And this is actually not Indra's net, but actually the world we live in. And I love a net. A net, what does a net do? A net, it catches things. Like a net holds things. But without the holes, without the negative space in between, there's no net. So you can think it's a beautiful analogy. It's not what you see and touch and feel, but what's behind the mind source. And it takes training to turn about. So you have the delusion of the self, and you have the delusion of things that seem to belong to the self, but the things that see outside of the self. And in the West as well as the East, consciousness is a very important thing to be conscious of. But in Buddha Dharma, consciousness is your enemy. Maybe enemy is not such a good word. Consciousness is not. You should not become attached to your consciousness. I am consciousness of that because already you've separated. So the Buddha Dharma is also in the Heart Sutra. It states no consciousness. And in his Hermisky, it's when there's no consciousness, or they say it in this way, consciousness only, or mind only. There, it stops right there. It's a very difficult thing. And in fact, your mind stops. Your mind, your thoughts, the mind is creating the thoughts. And when you breathe through the Tannen Kikai, which is the front, you also breathe through the lower back, which is the kidneys and liver. You breathe through both places. When you train yourself to breathe that way, it's not chest breathing, it's down here. When you breathe that through that way, your thinking will diminish because the heat and the energy is all going up. You're bringing the breathing down. When it goes up, it creates anxiety, worry, can't sleep, migraine. It goes on and on and on. But you have to train and change your breathing. So in the Tremitsky, Vachubanzu divides it in three ways. But we this is very difficult reading because I've been trying to understand it over many years. But yeah, just chiseling away and reading it over and over and over again. It's divided in three sections. Retribution. It's an interesting word. How do you translate retribution? What's the slang saying? What
Revenge.
Oh, revenge. Revenge. What is it? What comes around? What goes around comes around. That's retribution. Yeah. Okay. Retribution is the first one. Second one is thinking. How we created itself. And the third one is external objects. And retribution is what is the great perfection. The word perfection in the Dharma, it includes retribution, it includes, which is the storehouse of our repository of all our consciousness. And so, whatever we think during the day, this is not just theory, it's practical. Whatever we think in the day, whatever we don't think in the day, it goes in, it's like a little seed, and it goes into the storehouse. And uh, if you have no discipline and training, that seed will, in its own condition, bear its fruit sometime during your lifetime, whether it's good, bad, or neutral. That's retribution. And that goes into what they call the alive vijnana storehouse. Every human being has that. And with lots of training, that storehouse transform into the Tathagata garbo. That it transforms into Buddha. In other words, every opposite or everything has its opposite. The dark has the light has the dark. If that was not possible, the universe would collapse. So that's every hell there is a little Buddha. It's great. It's liberation. It's liberation, but because it includes everything. Nothing is left out. The bad, even the neutral and the good. That's why it's great. And that's why the word perfection is. I mean, people don't use that word anymore, but it is perfection. And it says here in uh, phrase section 4 of the Tremiska, it is undefiled, morally indeterminate. It is associated with neither pain nor pleasure. Its conveyance is like that of a flowing stream, never ending, unless you realize, unless you have some kind of discipline or practice to turn it around. That's retribution. And it is abandoned in the stage of arhatship. See, arhatship is Theravada Buddhism. There's three. Theravada Buddhism, where Buddhism originated, right? With the Buddha. Mahayana, as is many generations later, it became Mahayana. First, Theravada Buddhism was about self-realization. Okay, self-realization, and when they achieved cessation of perception, the cessation of perception, they attained, and that included the cessation of greed, anger, and ignorance. That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, that's pretty good. That's maybe half of the suffering in the world. Greed, anger, and ignorance. They have transcended that, and they will not be reborn in their lives into anything. That's our hardship. And Trungpa, who was a great Lama that we all came across, he always included the three schools. He didn't say which was best. We because of our conditioning, we all have a tendency, oh, this is better than that. But in the university that he created, Naropa, in Boulder, Colorado, they're all the best. Because if it wasn't for Theravada, the Mahayana couldn't develop. And if it wasn't for the Mahayana, the Vajrayana, the Tibetan culture could not develop. So in Asia, there were temples which were Theravada and Mahayana. And I like that because actually it's not just they included, they shared. They didn't say ours is the best. And oftentimes many Mahayana, when they refer to Theravadins, they use the word Hinayana. Hina means small vehicle. Maha means the big. We belong to the big vehicle. Most people do that, but that's a wrong view. So to include, I mean, when you're sitting next to somebody, each one of you have a different view, but we're sitting next to each other. So we should continue to do that and continue to realize harmony of calmness, stillness is here. In fact, it's not very far away. It's closer than you think, but it takes training. Okay, abandoned in the stage of arhat. So also many sutras that you read, uh, there are people speaking the sutra. They are arhats. or they're bodhisattvas. And luckily, they make in very few sutras they speak to the Buddha himself. And this sutra that I began reading, the Lankavatara Sutra, very dense. But I think in the 60s, the suchness or the emptiness, the know of things, uh, people focused on that much more. And that's maybe at least 10, 20 years. But they did not know the principles behind this. And this book points out to the principles. So it's your uh, direct experience of Buddhist knowledge. And to have that direct experience is the emptiness of all things. It's kind of hard to understand. It's kind of hard to explain. But how about this? So this is called emptiness. It's called non-arising. No thinking. Still alive. Okay? All right. So I'll read you. Oh, and Bodhidharma, who is the one that our greatest ancestors. Uh, Actually, a lot of these ancestors were born in were princes, and he was a princess in very influential families. So his teacher asked him to go to China, but at that time China was not prepared for Bodhidharma, so they didn't actually treat him so well. And probably you know the story that he met the emperor, but the emperor didn't understand uh, Bodhidharma nor Buddhism. But the emperor had built hundreds of temples, and he asked Bodhidharma. He said, "What merit will I receive for doing all these good things?" And the Bodhidharma said, "No merit." You're standing in front of the emperor, and you're telling him you don't get any merit. If you want to live, you would say you get lots of merit. But Bodhidharma, maybe this is the beginning of Zen, uh, past authority. Okay, he just said what was true, no merit. And of course, then the Bodhidharma didn't understand that. And I mean, the emperor didn't understand, so Bodhidharma left, and he went up north. I didn't know how he got up there. He was already pretty old. But anyway, he sat, the tradition, he sat in the cave for 9 years. And kids threw rocks at him, uh, dogs barked at him. But the more he sat, other people began realizing that he knows what he's doing. He's not just new at meditation. So they tried to poison him. And finally they did. But Bodhidharma didn't mind. But, uh, you know, he was the one that pointed to the mind. Out of all teachers, he's the first one that pointed to our mind, which is what is the consciousness of our mind? What are we conscious of? And how to work with that consciousness. And it's either way, direct experience to Buddha's knowledge, exactly what the Buddha realized, or that's how it was done when the Dharma came west. And the other way, to reverse it, is a Buddhist knowledge and with direct experience. So I think that's maybe why I'm happy, is because I was the first, the direct experience and Buddhist knowledge. Now I'm beginning realizing there are the principles and philosophy behind emptiness and suchness, behind reality. So either way, that's the most important thing. And so Bodhidharma pointed out to he pointed to the mind, and he said to his disciples, the only book you need to read is the Lankavatara Sutra. So there are three realities, three modes of reality. Okay, I marked it in this so I can read it to you. And I'll end here. And you can see which one you're in, okay? Imagine reality, dependent reality, perfect reality. Just a minute. Well, actually, imagine reality is that because your idea of the self is self-existence, separate from all things. That's the imagined reality. And so if someone, the analogy before was to show you a rope and a snake. Imagine people living in that condition will always see the snake, but they will never see the rope. That's imagined reality, okay? It's best if you see the rope, don't you think? No. Well, okay, the second reality is dependent reality. And that's a little bit better because nothing can exist by itself. Nothing. I mean, it's true no matter what anyone says. Nothing can exist by itself. Isn't it true? What can exist by itself? Nothing. Okay? And so that's pretty good, dependent reality, because we're all interdependent. I think when America became independent, that was a big mistake. They should have used another word, but we were interdependent, okay? And so in interdependence, a little bit better. The snake and the rope, you see both, but that is still a misperception of reality because you only see the name. That's an arbitrary designation. You're still separate from reality. And then you have the perfected reality. Perfected reality through training makes you turn around like a about face, and you see not only the rope, you will see the snake also, as it is. So your mind becomes like a mirror, a bright mirror. Uh, Whatever's held is in front of the mirror, you see it without projection, without discrimination. It's wonderful. You see good, you see bad, you just see it. You don't become it. You just see it just like a mirror. It's great. There's no projection. So actually you are seeing suchness of things. It takes training, but it's not impossible. So Suzuki Roshi used to end his talk by this is just a talk, and maybe it'll help you a little bit, but the most important thing is, since you are all here, to come and practice, to train for yourself, because no one else can turn your karma except yourself. Okay? Okay, maybe some questions before we end. Okay? Yeah, we have some time before lunch.
So
Yeah,
you use the word retribution, and someone
retribution.
said revenge, and then said what comes around goes around. What that said to me was karma.
Yeah, it's habit energy. Yeah, it's another word, karma. So we cannot avoid karma, retribution, and all the seeds are planted. Revenge is a little bit too hard of a word, but what goes around karma comes around. It makes sense. I mean, even in the conventional world, they use the word "what comes around go." What goes around comes around. They recognize it, but they don't. They don't understand in the conventional world the depth of that and how do you unwind it. Because karma has its opposite. It has its Buddha in it. That's the great perfection to realize that. So you step out of it. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So what you ended with were the three perceptions, and in perfected perception, does that then dissolve into all illusion, like everything being an illusion, and then that dissolves?
Yeah.
Can you say something about that?
Actually, it's the same thing I'm saying is that whatever you see is a delusion. Whatever you see, whatever you do is a delusion. Isn't that something? Until the subject and object merge. That's your direct experience. Until that happens, then your life is different. But it's not just one time. You continue you continue to build on that through training and meditation. You continue because nothing is permanent also. So you continue to build on that. But in Nyose's Shinsashiki ceremony, the mountain seed ceremony, there was a question about the mirror. And so the mirror is someone said to him, um, because the question answered during the ceremony, that if there's a cloud in front of the mirror, can the mirror still illuminate or can it still see? Now, I forgot the answer, but I thought about it later. And you know what the mirror sees? It sees the cloud. That's all. Mirror sees the cloud. Yeah. There's a temple in Japan, uh, Ise Shrine, and we heard it's a Shinto religion, and it's nature. And I had heard for a long time that there was a round mirror in the temple. So Nyote and I had a chance to visit that. It was maybe just a 5 hour train ride from Suzuki Roshi's temple. What city was that? Nyote? East
Peninsula.
Yeah. And when we got there, it was it's a national park. Thousands of people were there. So we finally asked a worker there, where's let's see, Ama Teresa Omikami. She's the progenitor of the rising sun. Where's her inner sanctum? And most people don't know. And finally, we stumbled on it, and there was like maybe hundreds of people in front of it taking pictures. But I had heard that in that shrine, the only thing that's in there is a mirror. It's been great. So as we were standing there, there's a huge gate, there's at least as tall as the ceiling of this, with a huge canopy in front of it, and the canopy was at least that thick and at least that big. Those three vertical, and we could see it move. It was moving when there was no wind. She's in there. So these things are true. Yeah. Not only in Japan, but here. Okay? Yeah. Thank you for coming, and don't forget to sit with people. That's the most important thing. Thank you again.